Cinema Steven here, and since today is Friday the 13th, I thought, you know what, I haven't done a ranking in a while, and what better to do one than the Friday the 13th film franchise. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ranking my least favorite to my most favorite, and I'm going to go ahead and say right now that Freddy vs. Jason will not be included in this list, and I know that seems kind of odd to say it, but it's just not going to be. I always saw it as a special attraction type of a movie. While I do love it, I never really fit it within the original continuity of the Jason series, or the Freddy series for that matter. So it's not going to be on this list, but if I was going to put it on there, it probably would be top 3. I do love that movie. But here we go. Starting off, number 11, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. It was good. It was fine. I think they're all good, but this one was my least favorite. I did like the fact that they had to bring in someone with telekinetic supernatural abilities to try and contend with Jason, because at this point he was a superhuman killing machine, but yet it was my least favorite. Number 10, Friday the 13th, Part 8. Now, I know Jason Takes Manhattan is probably higher up on a lot of people's lists, but it's one of my least favorite because I just saw it as a novelty. I thought the marketing campaign, the posters are better than the actual movie. He doesn't even show up to Manhattan until about 40 minutes into the movie, spends the majority of it on that boat, pretty much coming from Crystal Lake, and the finale in the sewer was just kind of underwhelming, but had some decent kills, but overall, not my favorite. Next, number 9, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Now, this one was the first one purchased by New Line Cinema, and this is the one that was going to be people thinking, oh, now it's under the banner of Freddy Krueger. Are we going to see these two titans of horror collide? Well, no, we don't until the actual final frame of this movie, which happens to be the best part of this movie. While there are some kills, you never see Jason throughout the whole movie. It's basically Voorhees' spirit overtaking other people's bodies, doing the kills. Don't want to see it. I want to see Jason. Next one is number 8, Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake. Movie was good. I thought it was well polished. Looked a little bit more mainstream than the rest of the movies. Jared Padalecki and Daniel Panabaker starred in this remake of the Michael Bay Productions Platinum Dunes. They were trying to do something with it, trying to get it going again. They were promised a sequel because this one was actually a pretty big hit at the box office, but we never got it. But as far as the regular pantheon of the Friday the 13th movies, it's kind of lower down the tier. Number 7, Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Now, this one holds a special place in my heart because it's actually the first Jason movie that I've ever seen. Found an old VHS tape, put it in, watched it, and well, there you go. The rest is history. This one does kind of cheat because it isn't Jason that's doing the killing. It's actually an imposter named Roy, and he was exacting revenge on the death of his son. Now, you know that it's not Jason because he has the blue check marks on his face rather than the red ones, but decent kills, but still not Jason. Lower down the list. Number 6, Friday the 13th, Part 2. This is the first appearance of Jason as the killing machine, the human-sized version of him, aside from the very last shot of the first Friday the 13th. But this is the one where he takes center stage, taking over his mom's handiwork, and he does it in the Barlett bag. So there's a lot of novelty there, and a lot of fond remembrance of this visual image of him wearing the Barlett bag and the overall suspenders. So it was like Farmer Jason, basically, killing people. And, you know, still good. Ginny's definitely one of the best final girls out there in any horror movie. And this one, yeah, it's pretty right down the middle. So number 5, Jason X. Jason X is a terrible movie. We all know this. It's so schlocky, it's so goofy, but that's probably why I like it. It has some of the most creative kills in the entire franchise. The dude goes up into space, becomes Robo Jason, and the rest is history. And you know what? People talk a lot of trash about this movie, but I will say, though, that anytime you see a reel or a TikTok or a Facebook post, a video recapping a lot of Jason's deaths, you will see a majority of them coming from this movie, just because of the creativity that they put into it. But yes, it is still pretty dumb. Still don't know if it's called Jason X or Jason 10. Doesn't matter. But number 4, the original Friday the 13th, 1980s, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, with Mama Voorhees doing some work, baby. And this one is a classic because what it did was it rewrote the notion of what a slasher can be from the precedent that Halloween set. This one decides to take it in a more gory aspect, and it still had a bit of that old school horror thematic elements to the production of it. And it's a classic. And of course, it does have the final shot of Jason coming out of the water to bring Alice down under the water, which is one of the most iconic twist endings in horror history. Number 3, Friday the 13th, Part 3. Now, this one was iconic for a couple of reasons. Most notably is because it's the first time that you see Jason Voorhees with his infamous traditional hockey mask, because like I said, the burlap bag overtook Part 2. Part 3 is also it's also funny because this is with their 3D version of the film series where everything is being thrown to the camera, and here's the camera, here's the kill, and it's very hokey, it's very goofy, but I also really enjoyed it. I love the mask, and Dana Kamel is actually my favorite final girl in all of the Friday the 13th series. Kind of had a crush on her. What can you do? Number 2, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Now, this one was great because this is the version of Jason that becomes the most iconic and most fondly remembered because it's the one that becomes brought back to the dead. It's the Frankenstein version of Jason. It's the superhuman power killing machine. Love that Tommy Jarvis was involved in this story, and it just kind of wrapped up a lot of storylines, and I really enjoyed that one. Number 1, favorite of all time, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. This introduced a lot of elements. It had Corey Feldman showing up as Tommy Jarvis, yet the same character that contends with Jason for the next couple of movies. And this also brought Tom Savini back to work in the Friday the 13th franchise. He said, okay, I'll only do it if I get to kill Jason. They said, yeah, you can come do it. And what is left is some of the greatest gross out, grotesque makeup effects in cinematic horror history. And it's also a great story. It was a conclusion, but, some of these horror icons never die. Now, I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Crystal Lake. It's the new series that's coming out on Peacock, and Brian Fuller, the creator of Hannibal, is also executive producing the show. I loved Hannibal, so I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with Crystal Lake. I know it takes place when Jason's younger, so we will see. But that is my final Friday the 13th rankings.